Hi, I'm Sean McElhenney. This is My War with Words on YouTube. Take three. I've been working on a video talking about Scriptaplaooza, one of the reasons I'm still a writer today, a contest win that I had back in 1999. I'm going to try to keep this under 10 minutes. I seem to be crashing right around the 10-minute mark, which is probably good. I need to learn to pare down as I have with my literary quotes of the day. Scriptaplaooza, screenwriting competition I thought I heard about from a friend. I remember thanking a friend who I worked with at the time at City Search in Pasadena. I said, Diego, thanks for letting me know about Scriptaplaooza, man. I just got my screenplay in there in time. I got a little note back that said, hey, you're in, congratulations. And Diego said, I don't know anything about that screenplay contest, so I don't know why. Nobody else that I worked with then had entered, and I don't know how I got in there, but I know I heard about it. I got in under the deadline and I won. Briefly, I learned about my win. I was working weekends then, providing news to KFI in Los Angeles via a place called Airwatch America in Santa Ana, California, in Southern California. And the day that they were going to announce the winners, I was glued to I'm on my regular monitor doing my news, and I'm glued to this monitor, paying attention to when they're going to announce the winners. And saw my name pop up with two other people. We're the top three people in that inaugural Scriptaplaooza. The names went away. It's like they were fiddling around with it live in real time, getting ready to announce the winners. And it was a little bit later on that it got posted up there permanently. By the time I got a phone call from them early in the work week, the following week, I already had all the pins and needles and the excitement and stuff were gone. It's like somebody called and said, "Sean, congratulations, you won Scriptaplaooza." I'm like, "Oh, I know," which is not the best thing to say to someone who's calling and hoping to get a recordable. I don't think that he was trying to record something, but trying to get a genuine reaction. And my genuine reaction the day that I did hear about it was, I was floored. One of the best days of my life, because that kind of a win, if you've won something that you really, 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 really want, it's a big deal. The screenplay that won is called Soul to Keep. The other thing, so that day when I got the call from, I believe is the guy who owns and runs Scriptaplaooza, I believe his name is Mark Andrushko, or was. He contacted me sometime relatively recently in the last few years, maybe last 5 years or so, when they had their anniversary of note, and they were looking for a quote from me and others, and they used a little quote that I had about the contest. They treated me well. The screenplay was read by a lot of people who expressed some interest. Patrick Stewart's production company, a young man there, said, "Love it. This is your first screenplay. That's awesome. Do you have anything else?" And I'm like, "No, I don't. And I didn't then, and I really haven't since. I've written a couple of other screenplays since, but none as good as the first. That said, even that, I get the feeling too, and this is just gut, that Mark Andrushko himself didn't love my screenplay. I just get the feeling, something tells me that there was a panel of people who read these screenplays and that there was a win. If there were, say, 9 people choosing the screenplays, probably 5-4 that my screenplay won. If there were 3 people, it was 2-1 that my screenplay won that contest. I just get the feeling that he didn't love my work. He didn't love what I put out there. Here's Soul to Keep in a nutshell. It's a story about cryonics and reincarnation. Cryonics, of course, is or cryobiology is the freezing of people after they die, as close to the time of their death as possible, in the hopes of bringing them back to life someday in the future when technology has solved the problem of cellular destruction by freezing temperatures and other things. I learned a lot about cryonics at the time, enough to write what I think was a lucid screenplay. Where I got into the science and explained the science at the beginning. I shared my screenplay with the guy who was then in charge of, or one of the guys that I contacted at Alcor Life Extension, who I believe were based in Arizona or somewhere in California. And the guy who sent back notes on my screenplay, I remember at the beginning, he's like, yeah, that's kind of the way it works. Yeah, that's good. Yep. And that's basically, he was like very much in agreement in my setup. And then all the pseudoscience that I throw in later, I pissed him off. So here I am, pissing people off with a screenplay. But that's really, it's kind of Hollywood. Story is about a guy, Al Sanders, 1979, who has a heart condition. He learns about life extension, about cryonics, and he wants to get in on it because he knows he's dying. He knows he's living on borrowed time. His wife disagrees. His friend, his best friend, and a co-worker, they own a real estate company together. Sanders Peterson Real Estate, or Peters Sanderson Real Estate, or it might have been a law firm. I can't remember what I settled on. It's been a while. He learns about it only the day when Al dies, and he has to kind of steal the body from the hospital because the doctors don't want to release the body. So I had a little conflict there. They get Al, they get him frozen, and Ben turns to the guy who's in head of the charge of the cryonic center. His name is Dan Middleton, Middleton Center for Cryonics, and says, "Tell me about it. How does this work?" And he starts talking him through it, and then we move into the future. Al is woken up. He's defrosted, quote unquote, and he comes back to life. Everything's kind of hunky dory at the beginning. He's very jarring, meeting his great great granddaughter, who looks very much like his wife. A difficulty, a transition for him. He meets Dan Middleton, who's there in the future. It's Middleton Life Extension Center. It's on the beach in Pismo Beach, Pismo State Beach, Grover Beach, that area. I've erased everything that's there right now. It's just this huge center. They're taking care of people. And there's Ben Peterson. He's back. So that's also a little bit jarring, but comforting for Al. It's like, my buddy, he's here, Ben. And he said, yeah, Ben now works for Middleton Life Extension. He learned about it and became really taken with it, smitten with it. And he devoted his second life to working at the Middleton Life Extension Center. Al goes out on the beach, goes for a walk with his great great granddaughter as he's getting ready to go through orientation and other things. And he suddenly starts having memories that aren't his. Memories of a little girl running after a dog, memories of a little girl, or just being in the eyes and the head of a little girl, talking to his mother, her mother. And then we kind of flash to New Hampshire, where there's a little girl, 8-year-old girl named Jacqueline Pierce, who is having memories that belong to Al Sanders. Cinematically, not sure exactly how that would be handled, but I did my best to write that we're like in two brains at the same time who are sharing the same soul. We get a college professor from nearby who's kind of groovy, who buys into the reincarnation angle on this because it does hit the news. I don't like the idea of bringing news in on something like this, but I have to find a way to get it into the hands of someone who's a little bit less scientific than the folks at the Middleton Center. And the folks at the Middleton Center are scientific, but they're also involved in the business of bringing people back. So the story is really about the conflict of them trying to shut down Jackie's memories in Al and Al's memories in Jackie so she can have her life back and he can have his life back. And at the same time, not to get too much negative publicity for the Middleton Center. That's part of their deal. The idea came from reading a book years ago when I was at World Library in Southern California. Library of the Future was the product that we put out. I read a book that I edited there, the electronic version by C. Eric Drexler, called Engines of Creation, where he talked about cryonics. And he very flippantly said, religions basically don't have a problem with this. We've had many religious ceremonies around the interment of bodies. And I'm like, really? Really? And then it just got into my head, what about reincarnation? What about you shut down this body and then you bring this body back? And if the science works, you bring this body back. What about the soul that occupied that body? And that's where the idea came from. And the solution in the end, spoiler alert, but you'll never read this, you may, is at the time, at the end of my workday, to shut down all my files, I used a program called PK-Zip, a zip file, where you're basically taking files that are this big and you're shrinking them down to about this big. And I thought, well, maybe that's what they say when only 10% of our brain actually functions. Maybe the other 90% is where all of these past lives, all of these things that make up our soul are stored. And we have to get through that to that. Here's where we're living right now. All of this kind of informs that, but we don't have access to it. And maybe this process opened that up, it awakened it, and they need to find a way to kind of shut it back down again. That's Sold to Keep. That was the idea. I think it was one of the better ideas I ever had. It won me a couple $1,000s. It won me attention, and it was a pat on the back. And it was something that made me realize, well, you know what? I can write. I can write. I have ideas. I can put them out there. That's all I have for you today. I'm afraid this video is going to shut down again in the middle. Scriptaplaooza, Sold to Keep. They're still in existence. They're up there, scriptaplaooza.com, a very prestigious screenwriters competition. When I won, it was the first year, the inaugural Scriptaplaooza Screenwriters Competition. I think there were something like 600 entrants that year. My War with Words, mywarwithwords.com, here on YouTube, and I'm sharing quotes of the day, literary quotes of the day on Instagram and elsewhere on social media. Sean McElhenney, we'll talk soon. Thanks.